So yeah, I guess I'll just wrap up my talk about progress there, because I want to also jump into something that has been on my mind with sort of videos as a whole. So if you didn't know, yesterday, or I guess it was yesterday because it was like past midnight, but yesterday I posted a video at like 1 in the morning about the Chainsaw Man movie. And this was my spoiler review. I did like a spoiler free like short that I posted, which did very well. It got like over 1,000 views. So that was huge because I capitalized on, Chainsaw Man in the algorithm is already being boosted. I like those types of videos because I can just hit record and film a movie review, especially when it comes to an anime movie. And I am super excited because I just saw on my on Twitter that Chainsaw Man actually made like a ton of money just on its opening weekend in the US. So that's already like huge. And I'm very happy for them because Chainsaw Man, not only do the Mappa animators work so hard to give us such quality content despite the working conditions that they have to go through, but it's a big step forward for anime. And I like to rant about how sometimes normies can ruin anime and anime spaces, and because there's more tension, especially with popularity, the little toxic parts of these anime communities quadruple in size because there's not naturally more people, therefore the percentage will increase, right? But instead of like ranting about that, which I've done time and time again, I want to focus on the positive, which is more people watching anime and more people getting into shows like Chainsaw Man that are very, I will say, unconventional from the standard type of anime that exists in the space. Instead of focusing on like the generic action shows or the generic isekai, what I do love about Chainsaw Man is it's showing a little bit more of the artistic side of anime, where it's very unique. And I'm glad that people are getting more into anime because now Chainsaw Man's a weird show because it's not necessarily shonen in the way that you imagine shonen, because shonen, in my opinion, is like My Hero Academia, it is Bleach, it is I will say what's another one, like Hunter x Hunter, right? Chainsaw Man doesn't necessarily fit into the box of shonen 100%. There are parts that do fit into shonen, especially when it comes to action sequences, but I wouldn't consider Chainsaw Man a shonen. And so that's what makes me happy, is there were parts of the Chainsaw Man movie that were very much slice of life. There were very much parts that were psychological horror. And so by bringing in these other sub-genres of anime, because once again, I'll say this time and time again, anime is not it's not a genre, it's a medium. The more that we're exposing a lot more people to the different genres that exist within the anime space, people are going to treat anime with a lot more respect. And we're already seeing that. And as much as I've ranted before about popularity sometimes having a negative effect, especially when it comes to anime spaces. One thing I will say is exposing more people to anime. One good thing about that is anime and animation is getting a lot more respect. And that's not to say that animation has not been respected by people in the past. I'm saying from general mainstream audiences, treating animation as just something for kids, or looking down at young adults for liking anime, which seems like a kid, like childish shows, right? Or shows for teenagers, right? We're actually seeing a lot of that prejudice and just wrong information being pushed back against because of Demon Slayer Infinity Castle, because of Chainsaw Man. And it has to do with not only just theatrical releases, but also with money coming in, merchandise, people feeling empowered to cosplay at I went to see Chainsaw Man 2 days ago, and in the theater, There are people dressed up as Chainsaw Man characters, like someone dressed up as Zenji. I saw a Makima cosplayer. I saw an Aki cosplayer, or it's actually 2 Aki cosplayers. So just seeing the passion and just the love for, I guess, anime more prevalent in big events like theaters is huge. And I think also this is something to note too. I don't want to mention COVID, because COVID is something that I think everyone is tired of hearing, especially when we talk about the changes in recent media and what we've had to go through. Everyone knows about COVID, right? But I don't want to specifically talk about lockdowns. I'm talking about specifically theaters during quarantine and how theaters were losing a lot of money. What is great is, because theaters have been losing a lot of money, you actually see a lot of these mid-sized films over the years shrink. So you have a lot of indie films being produced. You have a lot of major big blockbuster films being produced, but a lot of the medium-sized films don't exist anymore. Well, you're actually getting those now in international film distributions, and that includes anime films. So you're seeing a lot more anime films in theaters. And I think the fact that anime films have capitalized on, hey, movies weren't being really made during a period during quarantine, and now you're seeing them skyrocket, especially with Crunchyroll exploding in popularity because of COVID. You get a lot more exposure to anime in the mainstream, and I'm so happy to see it. It is something that I think is overall a very good thing. As much as I do think there are lots of detriments to popularity, I think it is a good thing for anime to blow up, because that means more money into the industry. That means more anime is going to be coming out and more merchandise. And as someone, who has figures right behind me, I know it's tough to see because of the lights, because it's first thing in the morning, but I have a Luffy plush. I have a Natsu wig. I have a straw hat. I have figures from that time I got reincarnated as a slime, to Detective Conan and a bunch of other shows. So, as someone who collects the merchandise and loves to cosplay, I love to see this. That, and I also just love sort of anime because it also introduced me to my current friend group. All the core friends I have now, the reason why I met them is because we all formed this anime club in a sense at college, and we used to have parties where we dress up. We'd have a murder mystery party that was awesome. We would go over and talk about our favorite anime. We'd go to the movies together. I remember I went to see the Demon Slayer Mugen Train movie when it was coming out, and they all dressed as the Hashira, and I was the only one who dressed up as another anime character that was completely different for the meme. And that was really funny. But just everyone dressing up, going to the theater. And my friend, it was funny. My friend, she dressed up as Zenitsu, and we were walking back to the parking lot, and we saw this Nezuko cosplayer in the distance. And we both saw each other, both our groups saw each other. And my friend started screaming, and the Nezuko started screaming too. And we were laughing the entire time. And that's just how the cosplay community is, very open. We'll crack jokes, and as much as yes, there are existing problems when it comes to cosplay as conventions, especially now when it comes to security and weirdos online. If you see cosplayers and the interactions we have, I saw one too where it was a convention, and I think it was someone dressed up as Red Guardian and the other as White Widow. What's her name? Yelena, right? Yelena. And they recreated that scene where Red Guardian's Yelena, she's gonna kill you. And I was laughing because he's in this convention shouting this out in character, and everyone around the convention was also laughing. So it's just positive good times like that, I think, are very healthy for a community. And to see that especially within anime convention now, movie theaters in a sense, I think the popcorn buckets, yes, collectibles, People go crazy for that, especially like the Mission Impossible one where you need a key to open it up, or the Demon Slayer one. I saw there was like what, Nezuko's box that you could turn into a popcorn bucket, or for the Chainsaw Man movie was the Pochita popcorn bucket, right? You're selling these, people are buying them, and people are loving them. But I also could see movie theaters, like especially when it comes to fandom, embracing superhero movies, embracing anime movies, and starting to sell even more merchandise. I already see some of it with, like, for example, Harkins theaters have like areas where you can buy plushes and stuff. But what I'm saying is we could see definitely more of that in theaters, and definitely capitalizing on like, hey, people love fandom, cater to the fandom, cater to the fans, for the fans, you know? Because there is a moneymaker for there, and everyone's happy. You know, the theaters make profits, the producers of the merchandise make profits. You know, anime fans are happy because they have a new plush, new collectible to put in their room, you know? So more of that, the better. And yeah, just a full-on pivot to just catering towards fans, I think is a very good thing. Like, look at the One Piece live action. You know, Oda wanted to make a show about that is very faithful to the One Piece anime, but he also knows that, you know, live actions aren't received well when they aren't handled with the utmost care. So his goal was to make sure that all the casting was proper, that make sure that every single role was done with the reason, and was very faithful to sort of even the ethnicities and cultures of these characters are portrayed by actors that represent them fully. So to see all that like done extremely well, especially when it comes to Oda's storytelling, and now there's like season 2 and 3 being made of One Piece, and the live action for the most part has been well received. That just goes to show the power of, you know, respecting the fandom. And yeah, maybe live action adaptations, you know, to me it's like a double-edged sword, because yes, live action adaptations are only done sometimes for the money, because studios don't respect animation and they feel like if I just make a live action adaptation, money will roll in, right? Not understanding that there's more to what makes animation and anime great, that live action, if you take that for granted, will not capture. So it's interesting to see that One Piece has now been so well received because they took that care, even though studios may not learn that lesson, especially with the My Hero Academia live action coming out. Oh God. But that being said, I'm glad at least, you know, we got a good adaptation for when it comes to the One Piece live action. And again, it's catering towards the fans. And I think that should be the lesson at the end of the day is theaters, movie studios, anyone who wants to capitalize on fandom, like, please do it for the fans. Because if you are fake and inauthentic and saying, oh, this is what fans want, right? They want this, and they don't necessarily do want that kind of content being produced, you're gonna not see the return, right? So either that, or like, look, there are examples of things where it could be made for the fans, but for whatever reason it also doesn't do well financially or successfully. And I also want studios to know this too, when it comes to when you make these anime films, is don't also take failures as the fault of the fans not showing up, because it also could be some other factor that is the reason why it wasn't a big success. And an example of that would be, like, as much as I hate to say it, Transformers 1. Because that movie would have done so well and been such a success had it not been for the poor advertising. All it was is they just did not advertise the film properly, and therefore people saw it as another generic Transformers film compared to what it actually was. And that's where it was really tough to see it not have the best returns. Same with Tron Ares. It didn't necessarily sell you on a great concept, and because I feel like it was mismanaged with the marketing, and also maybe word of mouth, they didn't push word of mouth hard enough, especially with more of a focus on the writing as opposed to the visuals. People didn't show up for it, because I think that was like the biggest issue with Tron Legacy is it didn't become a big success until after. And it became a cult classic after that. But, you know, Tron Ares, when it said, hey, you know, we're having sort of this expansion of the Tron universe. People want to see Tron. People want to see the characters from Tron Legacy. So maybe that's probably why they didn't necessarily want to show up for Tron Ares. So again, when these anime movies, which they have been so successful, and I already know Infinity Castle, the next 2 movies that are coming out for the trilogy are going to make bank, right? We're just going to have to see what ends up happening, right? What will be the end result of these big movies coming out? And I think that's what I think movie theaters and movie studios are trying to figure out now is, well, these anime movies are making such huge returns. How can we capitalize on that? And I hope we're going to have a flop with My Hero. I'm already calling it now. We're going to have a flop with the My Hero movie. It's going to make bank. This is how I feel. The Minecraft movie. It's not a good movie. I did not enjoy my time in that movie because I just thought it was just dumb. I thought I was losing brain cells while watching the film. It's getting a sequel. It was a huge box office hit. I feel like the same thing is going to happen to the My Hero Academia movie. Is like it's going to be carried by name only. And because it has the My Hero Academia name, it's going to make a lot of money. Maybe I'll go. Maybe I'll do a video later where I go. Maybe I'll pre-game the My Hero Academia movie. Do something fun and then talk about how, like, you know, because maybe that's the only way I'm going to watch it. Because I know it's probably going to be a bad movie based on the people behind the film who have had misses when it comes to writing credits. But we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening with the My Hero movie. Oh man, I like, what do you even adapt for the movie? Like, I would understand if you made a live action of like the existing My Hero Academia animated movies, but like I cannot see you doing like maybe like the first arc, maybe like he gets accepted into the school and then you end season 1 in a movie. But I feel like there's just so much content that you just cannot cram into it. I don't even get started with it. It's so crazy. I've talked to my friends about this and they're all on the same page as me. Luckily, we're all just kind of baffled that why does this exist? But to quote someone, for money. They're doing it for money. And or we make product we like, you know, you make product to sell more product, right? You make the product so you can sell a sequel. I feel like that's also what they're probably trying to capitalize on for My Hero is like, hey, we can pump out probably a ton of these movies if we get like a big box office success, right? So it could also be that. Yeah, and it's also okay. So it's also a little bit weird to me is also when it comes to live actions and just big movies in general. The reason why I think you're also seeing big returns for Demon Slayer and Chainsaw Man is Chainsaw Man, for example, is a continuation of the Chainsaw Man story from the anime. And I'll say this. You don't necessarily get that when it comes to I guess you don't get that when it comes to movies in general whenever they like make an adaptation. Like I'll say this, like the Ninjago movie. This is a perfect example. It's an anime movie based on the animated series. It is not a continuation of the series. So if you're a fan of the series, you may like it, but you also may not, because there's like no point to watching it because it has nothing to do with the series. I think this is also a problem because this is a continuation of a series. You already have that loyal fan base already showing up to the theaters. And yes, studios may feel scared to do a film that, you know, has homework that you have to do, like Marvel films, right? You have to watch previous films, you have to watch a previous series to enjoy this movie. What I do like about Chainsaw Man and Demon Slayer is they're continuations of the series. They don't try and dumb it down for people coming in. As much as Chainsaw Man is actually a great movie to watch because you don't necessarily need too much context because it is a very self-contained arc, which I've said in my review. What I will say is I'm glad it doesn't cater to normies. It caters to the fan base and people who have been watching the TV series. And that is also something that I want to note too, is maybe that's what Tron Ares should have done, is looking back at it, had they pulled more stuff from Legacy and even Tron Uprising, which is a phenomenal series, you may have had more of a success if you pulled from that. And that's why maybe you'll see a big hit with Disney, and hopefully they'll learn this lesson with The Mandalorian and Grogu, where you have the Mandalorian fan base going to see this movie. I think that's going to be a success. So maybe that's also why Chainsaw Man was just so huge in, I guess, returns, is because you had that loyal fan base already going to the theater watching Chainsaw Man, and then you also had anime fans going in and watching the movie with their friends who have watched the series, you know? I mean, that's what me and my friends did. Me and my friends, we went. One of them hasn't seen the series, one had, and we went and we had a good time. So maybe that's why. I'm gonna boil it down to, we need more movies that are more just higher budget continuations of series, not continuations of the IP, if that makes sense. And maybe that's how you get a return on the movie, is if you want the biggest success possible and you want to cater to the fans, reward the fans. Watching a TV series is very much a commitment, and maybe that's why DC has been so successful with Peacemaker. And that's why I haven't heard anything from Gen V Season 2, as much as I hate to say it, because I haven't seen Gen V Season 2. Maybe that's why Peacemaker is in the public consciousness, because it's tying itself to the DC movies and it's setting up the next Superman movie. It's connecting the universe that James Gunn is building. So that's what I think it is the movies have purpose behind them. And I think people are tired of franchise films that are going nowhere, that don't reward people from following along. What I am happy about is that's why I love Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts rewards you for paying attention to the series, but also can also, you know, be easy to follow along with in case you miss anything or forget things from previous movies. And Fantastic Four is also a great example of that, because it's like, hey, we're rewarding you for being a comic fan. Here are comic accurate costumes, here are comic accurate characters, and we're going to reference things that, you know, weren't available to you in earlier films, like a comic accurate thing design. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'll wrap up there and just say, yeah, so maybe that's why we have such a success with anime movies nowadays, because it's rewarding fans. And when fans love something, they'll pump money into something, with whether it's movie tickets, collectible popcorn buckets, figurines, plushes. Like, look, I'm not insulting anyone who buys any merchandise, especially anime merchandise, because I do the same thing. Okay, I had this whole argument, or not argument, my friends had this whole argument whether you know, figures are worth it or not, or whether you should just buy box sets and get the pretty box set art. But I'm gonna side with the figures side, because I think it's very cool to have figures, because you can look at it from time to time and just get a good feeling of being reminded of your favorite shows or your favorite characters. So yeah,